Marty and Christina, young explorers with a passion for venturing into forgotten places, decided one day to visit an abandoned psychiatric hospital located on the outskirts of Los Angeles. The hospital had been shut down in the 1980s after complaints about inhumane treatment and mysterious disappearances. At first, all seemed well. They scaled a damaged fence, gained entry through a window, and entered a dusty and cobweb-infested mausoleum. The empty rooms that once housed suffering patients were adorned with enigmatic inscriptions, perhaps left by investigators or the patients themselves. However, as they ventured deeper into the structure, an ominous atmosphere enveloped them. Christina noticed the eerie echoes of their footsteps in the desolate space, and a sense of being watched overcame her. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from behind, as if someone were stealthily following them. Attempting to maintain composure, she urged Marty to proceed with their exploration. In one of the passageways, they discovered an abandoned office space, its walls adorned with scribbles and photographs. Among the latter, there was a photograph of a man they did not recognize, his gaze piercing and unsettling. On the other side of the room, an antique desk was littered with instruments of the medical trade. Suddenly, they heard a creaking noise behind them. Marty and Christine turned around. The corridor was deserted. Their fear intensified, and they decided to abandon the room. As they walked away, their unease only grew, and every sound, even the distant crackle and rustle, seemed loud and menacing. As they approached a long corridor bathed in dim light, their attention was drawn to a closed metal window. Through the crack, they could see an old warehouse filled with crates and medical supplies. Outside the window, the sky was dark, as if the night had swallowed everything in its path. Suddenly, there was a creaking noise behind them. Marty and Christina whirled around. The corridor was empty. Their fear intensified, and they decided to leave the building. Yet their fear did not subside, and the ominous sensations only grew, with every sound, distant crackle or rustle, seeming loud and menacing. Marty and Christina resolved to investigate the warehouse. Upon entering, their gaze fell upon an ancient metal cabinet in the corner, festooned with rusted locks and imbued with a sense of foreboding. Christina noted that the cabinet was slightly ajar, and she cautiously attempted to open it. Inside, they discovered a plethora of old medical journals and grim records, one of which stood out. It was covered in macabre drawings and notes depicting the suffering of patients. Suddenly, a faint moan emanated from the deepest recesses of the warehouse. They swiveled around to find a dark figure seated on the floor, form obscured by shadows. Marty approached the scene and activated his flashlight, revealing an emaciated figure before them. The man's hands were shackled, and his face bore the marks of dirt and blood. His voice, filled with a profound sense of despair and agony, resonated with their ears as he pleaded for assistance. "Please help me," the man implored. "I have been held captive for an unimaginable length of time. Once I managed to break free, but they caught me again." Christina, bewildered, attempted to reassure him. "Who has you in their grasp? How can we assist you?" The man, introducing himself as Jason, began to recount his harrowing tale. He had been a patient at this psychiatric institution, but not like any other. Physicians conducted forbidden experiments on him, inflicting excruciating hallucinations and instilling paranoia in his mind. He attempted escape, only to be apprehended and returned to this malevolent place. In a hushed voice, Jason continued, "They use people like lab rats for their experiments. It's designed to blur the line between reality and illusion. I am part of a unique experiment. With each attempt at escape, they brought me back even more broken," said Jason, his voice trembling with fear. Christina and Marty exchanged a glance, their own fears mingling with sympathy. They knew they had to act, but before they could do so, they heard heavy footsteps echoing through the warehouse. The sound grew louder, closer. Tension filled the air as shadows danced in the darkness. Figures in medical coats moved stealthily, their faces hidden behind masks. Their movements were purposeful and deliberate. "They're coming for me," Jason cried out, panic evident in his voice. "They always find me when I try to run." Christina and Marty's hearts pounded with fear as they frantically searched for a way out, but their efforts were futile. The warehouse door slammed shut, the lock clicking into place. No keys were visible, no chance of escape. At that moment, the figures in robes advanced on Jason. They did not speak, but their motions were deliberate and systematic. Marty and Christina observed that they carried instruments in their hands that resembled medical equipment, yet their purpose was clearly malevolent. Long needles, syringes, and sharp blades. They are doing things to the patients that you cannot imagine, Jason murmured as the figures drew near. Experiments that would make you go mad. In an instant, Marty and Christina realized that their own safety was at stake. Figures began to approach Jason, and Marty sought a means of escape. However, fear and terror paralyzed their actions. Marty discovered a pair of old pipes that he could wield as weapons. Unfortunately, figures had closed in too swiftly. Finally, one of them approached Christina. Realizing her impotence, she sank to the ground, exhausted, in a last-ditch attempt to unlock the door. The discordant cacophony of Jason's brutal actions and his moans, intertwined with the clamor of their frantic endeavors, created an uncanny symphony that would forever linger in the annals of memory. When the authorities arrived the following day, they discovered the warehouse deserted. Only a few obsolete medical instruments and traces of blood on the floor served as mute testaments to the events that transpired. Officially, the inquiry yielded no results. There were no further traces of human presence in the facility. Nonetheless, locals continued to report peculiar sounds and apparitions emanating from the building. Marty and Christina remained missing. Their disappearance, one of the most enigmatic and sinister mysteries of this desolate place. The doors of the hospital were once again sealed, and it has since been shunned by those who have heard of its history. The enigma of what occurred there continues to haunt the minds of those daring enough to venture into the eerie confines of the abandoned hospital.